Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today in the Pulse College room at Dublin Comic Con. And thank you especially to Nikki Isordia, co-producer of The Simpsons, who has very kindly accepted our virtual invitation to the show this year. So throughout the weekend, we've been doing panels and talks with various different industry experts through games, animation, film, and television. And so, Nikki, just to begin, how does one end up working for The Simpsons, I suppose, to begin? How does the journey to that begin?
Well, for me, my Simpsons journey began, I think I'm at about 17 years now on the show. I had moved to Los Angeles to actually pursue a career as a makeup artist for TV and film. Through that, I got a job as a receptionist for Film Roman. 9 months later, the Simpsons, I had made friends with people on all the productions, but Simpsons needed a PA in the design department. So I went for it. And since then, I've kind of climbed through the ranks, PA, coordinator, supervisor, manager, associate producer, and now co-producer. So it's been really cool. It's been crazy because it's not what I set out to do in my life. I always knew I'd end up somehow in the entertainment industry, even from the time I was a child, and I grew up being a huge Simpsons fan. I started watching the show when it was shorts on the Tracy Ullman show. So it's really cool. It's very surreal to be here now, getting to help create this show that I grew up watching and so many people grew up watching. It's kind of a little bit of a magical story, I guess. I feel like I set out for something but landed where I needed to be, and I love it so much. It's been such a great ride and fun and interesting and exciting journey so far.
Oh, that's awesome. And so you were just saying, so what was your background in terms of, I suppose, breaking into the makeup design side of things? So you said you always wanted to go into entertainment of some kind. So did you go on to study any, I suppose, the prosthetics, like special effects in regards to that? Or is it more screen makeup? Or?
I did do some special effects. That's actually my favorite style of makeup to do. I love like zombies and like the really gross stuff. I think because it's a little more free creatively. So yeah, it's just something I kind of always was good at. Halloween's my favorite time of year, always doing makeup for friends. So that's kind of, I didn't go to school. I was self-taught, which is the same on The Simpsons. I did not go to college. I did not go to college for any of this. I've learned along the way, and I'm still learning every single day on this show.
And that's a great story of persistence as well, isn't it? It's it doesn't happen overnight at all. Sometimes people on the outside might think, oh yeah, that just, it just happens. It's like trial and error. And it's really interesting just how your journey has, like, you started out in a different field and found your way now into animation. So with regards to your current role, you mentioned associate producer, now co-producer. What's the evolution? Where does that come into the pipeline? Are you at the pre-production stage, or heavily in post, or actual production?
I'm involved in all of it pretty much. I have my hand in a little bit and in along the way. We do have other, storyboard producers and that sort of thing, but I do get to be involved in the entire process, which is really cool. And it's different because, as say like a production assistant, you're kind of in a little, not like a bubble, but maybe, not seeing the entire picture. So it's really cool that I've had a chance to, as I've moved and learned along the years, I've gotten to like learn about all the different departments. So now as a producer, I do help manage and oversee a little bit of everything at times.
Oh, that's great. And what was it like then, seeing it from the outside, like as an audience member, and then suddenly, now you're involved in production? Did anything ever change? Or did you ever look at an episode, like a past episode before you joined the show, or even the second? Do you look at it differently now that you're involved in the team?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I came into this knowing zero about animation and how cartoons and, this stuff is made. So definitely I do watch not just the Simpsons, but I do watch when I'm watching other animated shows, or I go back and look at old Simpsons things. And I actually watched Snow White recently. So knowing now, like, what the effects department does and like those sorts of things, and the animators, and like all the hard work and love and care that goes into these shows, it's definitely like given me a new set of eyes to watch it, and even bigger appreciation for this style of art.
Oh no, that's awesome. And with regards to, I suppose, just in terms of like your role in the pipeline, in terms of communication, like, is this? I suppose this is getting a bit in between the weeds, but is it just ordinary emails being sent to and back, or do you guys have like a designated server? Would you have like when communicating, uploading? Because I know years ago when it's done by hand with cell animation, that's no longer the way, so it's all digital. So I can't imagine that's just like an attachment to an email. So is there like a
Right.
shared system that to send those assets, I suppose?
Yeah, definitely. And it's been crazy. I started when we were still drawing on paper, so I've got to witness that evolution, which has been really cool. We do have a server. We're all digital now. So we have a server, and we make a season, and there'll be show folders for each episode. And then within that, we set up our pipeline for all the different departments. So everything is moving digitally. Communication is huge. It's so important. I'd say it's one of the top like important things in this sort of role. And for everyone, not just in production, for the animators, like we need to be really transparent and open and communicate with each other, especially now that we're all working remotely, because we are still working at home. We haven't been in the studio since the pandemic hit. So it's become even more important that we stay on top of communication and stay open with it.
And what was that translating from in office in studio to remote then? What was the first few days like that? Because I know even for myself at the college, it was like 24 hours and we were all
It's
like,
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. We had a little bit of a warning. We knew it was coming. I had started going in on weekends with one of my, I was a supervisor at the time, so with one of my producers, and we were kind of trying to figure out like what can be done from home, how are we going to do this? So we started talking about those things probably about a week or two before we went home. And then it was just like we got word on a Monday that we had to be out of the studio by Friday.
Wow.
So yeah, it was crazy. I came up with a little bit of a system. I got the PAs involved. We had like a checking system with the PAs to make sure that the artists knew how to take their equipment home and reconnect it, because we had everyone take their equipment from the studio. Yeah, and then I had it like a little, machine line working. We had everyone working from home. Well, not everyone. I'd say about 75% of people were up and running and working from home by Wednesday of that week. And then by Friday, we were all out. I was, I think, one of 3 last people to leave the studio.
Okay.
It was a little rocky. We had to come up with, some changes for the pipeline and the way we did things, and the way we communicate things. So the first few months, there were some little things we had to work on here and there, but I think everyone adjusted really well, and our team really worked together and came together and made the transition like really smooth as we could. So, and it's been going good.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. And I suppose just again, just some fan-based questions, I suppose. Did you have like a particular standout episode of The Simpsons that you always like, that was your go-to episode before joining? And then since you've worked on production, like, is the one that you look back on fondly from your time with them that just stand out as well? Or are the two the same?
I always like the one, Lisa and happy birthday, Lisa.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was one of my that as a child was one that really stood out to me. I have a couple of other favorites. I think the first episode that I coordinated, I can't remember the name of it up right now. The story was Milhouse and Bart, or one of the storylines, Milhouse and Bart built a robot seal.
Okay.
And they were given to the retirement castle to help, people live longer, I guess. But that was my first episode as a coordinator. And so that one's really special to me. And on top of it, David Bowie is my all-time fave. And the end of that episode had the David Bowie song. So it felt very right to me. Now we have some things that we're working on now that I can talk about, but I'm really, really loving and enjoying. So you'll all get to see soon. But there's some really good stuff that is now like, oh, that's my favorite. So
that must be the toughest part of the job, when something like awesome's happening and you have to sit in it for months or years, like, oh, can't say anything yet.
Yeah, it's really hard, especially when I have like family and friends that are constantly trying to like get in there and get some questions answered.
Well, speaking of questions, hopefully we won't be, asking anything or break any NDAs. But does anyone in the audience have any questions they'd like to ask at the moment? Yeah, sure. Do you want to come up and ask, or do you want to ask them there?
Want to ask them here?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I guess, what's the hardest part about being a producer?
Okay, so the question that's came is that did you hear that?
Yeah, what's the hardest part of being a producer?
Okay, sure.
Managing people is really difficult sometimes. I would say that's the hardest part. I mean, it's a stressful job at times, but I really love that, and I thrive in that kind of environment. And there's so much more that's rewarding and fun about it. So it makes up for that. But it is, like, I work with a lot of different personalities, a lot of people, different people. So I think that's the hardest part, or the most difficult part is at times. It's kind of like managing different personalities. I have to deal with a lot of personnel like issues sometimes. So that stuff isn't always the most fun, but it comes along with the job. Deadlines, those can be really stressful. We have some really crazy scheduling, but for the most part, honestly, like I can't say anything really like bad or awful about it. Like, I really love what I do. It's such I love the fast pace, the, learning constantly. And I work with a lot of really great, amazing artists and people that I grew up watching stuff that they've animated. So it's more rewarding than difficult.
Awesome.
But it has its moments.
Oh yeah, no,
what exactly is the role of the producer? Because I know like vaguely that they can provide money for the production, or I'm not quite clear on what they actually do.
Okay, so the question that came there was like, what the role of producer? Sorry, what is your name?
Killian.
Killian was just saying, basically his familiarity with the role of producer is as a fighting the funds
like
for the
budgets.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so is that, would that be within your remit of your role, or is that a separate type of producer?
It is not in my role right now, but I have our executive producer, who is my immediate supervisor and my boss. He does deal with budgets, not necessarily getting the funds in this way, but each episode has this budget that we have to stay within. We do go over at times. There's just things, that happen. So he's responsible for that and reporting to Gracie and those sorts of things. My role on The Simpsons as a producer, I work a lot with the animators and the directors. I'm also working closely with a coordinator supervisor, which was my role previously. So basically like a day for me, I sign on, I'll look through our FileMaker, which is our tracking system. I look at the shows daily all throughout the day. I do a lot of analyzing. I look at where we are in the process with an episode against the schedule and our shipping date. So I, along the way, I help figure out ways to make sure that we're shipping on time. If any problems come up or, there's fires to put out, I help with that stuff. Like I said, personnel issues I also deal with. Speaking with artists, directors, just making sure and overseeing all the parts of the puzzle and that we're staying on track.
Awesome. All right, thank you very much, and thank you for the question. And Annie, that's awesome. Sorry, go ahead.
Other than the Seal episode, what was your favorite episode that's been released so far?
Oh.
So far, I'm like, I can't remember all of the names. We did one last season. Oh, what was it? It was, I wish I could remember the name right now. It had to do with dogs, puppies. The Simpsons family brought in a trainer for their dog. That was one of my most recent favorites. I would say I'm really loving, I don't know if any of you have seen Disney Plus. We've done a lot of shorts recently. So the Star Wars short we did is one of my favorite things that we've done. I really, really enjoyed it. And I love that a lot of the shorts are like Maggie and Lisa. We did one recently with Lisa and Billie Eilish, which I really, really enjoyed working on that. So I love those.
That's awesome. Cheers. Thanks very much for the question. And I really liked I think it was last season, or could have been the season before, the Homer's Odysseus, the ancient Rome one. They went to the museum.
Oh, yes.
The mosaic stuff, and that was amazing. Like the background artwork was stunning in that episode. I was so like, good. Wow. Yeah, that was awesome. Any other?
Yeah, it was really beautiful.
I'll say, go ahead. Yeah.
Roughly how long would it take to like start off with like the idea for the episode and then like have it finished?
Okay, so that question was, how long would it take for an episode to be completed from start to end?
It is about, I think we're at 8 months for one episode. Yeah. And that's from the the first script, the record, to final shipping and airing. And we do have several episodes in production in various stages at one time.
Awesome. Okay. And so do you have a question as well?
Yeah, I was just wondering, the voice actors are very important for Simpsons. If ever there was if ever it happened that they were unable or they retired or something happened, what would happen? Because I know there was a scare a few years ago of Carly Shearer, Mr. Burns. Okay, he wants to do something else.
Okay, so the question here is about, in terms of the role of the voiceover actors, is there any contingencies if an actor wasn't available or moved on to another role? Has the show ever considered contingencies of that matter? Would that be a cause for delay in production?
The only times that we have delays in production, sometimes we do, like if we have a guest star and we need to kind of work with their schedule for them to record, that can kind of take a little bit of time for us to get. We try to not let it delay us. If it's something that's going to delay us, we'll finish the show and update that as a retake in post when we get the show back. Usually we also we'll still get temp lines, so it won't be the actor or the person that's reading it, but someone else will come in and do the temp lines, so we still do have something to animate too.
Okay, awesome. And do they still do in booth recordings, or has that gone remote now as well with the actors?
I'm pretty sure they're mainly at home.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
because we still do table reads also, which is really cool. They're just on Zoom.
Okay.
Which I actually think I've been to table reads in person, that was one of the moments where I was like, oh my goodness, like this is my job. Like, are you kidding me? I was like 10 years old all over again. It was the coolest thing. But I like the table reads on Zoom too, because I can see everybody.
Yeah, that'd
like
be awesome.
in one page, instead of like having to look around the room. But yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the job.
Awesome. Any other questions on the floor? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. What has been the biggest challenge moving from like cell drawings to digital?
Okay, so that question was, what's the biggest challenge moving from cell animation to digital?
I think it was just kind of getting everyone along in the beginning. It was really tough. We have these people who have been animators for years and working a certain way. So it was a little tough to get everyone in the transition. We did it slowly. Not everyone was digital at first. But other than that, I mean, once now everything's great. Korea, though, is not digital. So we do have a scene plan department that checks scenes to make sure that we're fielding correctly and characters aren't too small when things are printed out in Korea.
Cool, awesome. Cheers, thanks so much for the question. And so do you have a question?
You mentioned about scheduling and voice actors and all that stuff. I know some companies, they do like someone might record lines on one end and then work around other people's schedules to record their own lines. Is that the case, or do you kind of get them all together, try to create a sense of teamwork and family by keeping them all together recording?
Okay, cool. So that question here was just in terms of juggling the schedule. Do they endeavor to try to get the actors to record around the same time to work as a team, or is it more broken up then to juggle around someone's schedule?
I'm not involved too much with that side of things, but from what I can tell, they mostly do record on their own. Yeah, even before we were at home.
Yeah,
I'm sure there are times when they do, work with each other or work off of each other, but it's not. We don't have to do it that way to get what we need from them.
It must be so second nature to them now. They could like imagine not just their own characters, but the character they're talking to. Everyone could imagine in their minds like talking to Homer, talking to Marge, what the response would be.
Especially, that's one of the things I love about the table reads is seeing, because a lot of them do more than one character on this show. So it's really fun to see like Dan Castellaneta go from Homer to Grandpa, and he's like talking to himself basically. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. We'll just be coming up to time shortly soon, so I'm happy to throw out to one last final question. If anyone has one last one they want to throw out. Yeah, go ahead.
What's your least favorite episode?
Oh, I don't think we can ask that one.
I don't have one. I love them all.
Good answer.
That's awesome. Well, listen, I think that's thank you everyone for attending, and thank you so much. This is great, and we'll be posting this up in the coming days. But yeah, thanks again. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. I wish I could see you all. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.